Hi everybody, it's Mr. Stewart here with your assignment video for the animation course level 2 week 6. So this is part 2 of the dance assignment, and for hand-drawn we're going to fill out the missing frames, and for Maya we are going to add in the feet. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are back in Maya, and we're going to get started finishing up the dance assignment. Okay, so I've got my reference video back here and I'm ready to get going. Okay, so I'm going to turn my legs back on, and you can see now if I play this then I don't get much happening with my legs. Now I'm going to take my legs and make sure I've turned that to reference so that when I select over here, I don't actually select the geometry, I'm just selecting the control. And I'm going to go back to my original file, my original piece of paper that I drew. Okay, so now I can go back and I can reference this, and I'm going to go and see where it is that my feet start and end, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to do my very first pose and my very last pose. So looking at my reference over here, I'm going to make a pose. I'm going to swing my I'm going to swing over to this side so that it matches up closer to my video. And then I'm going to start, I'm going to frame it on that foot just so it makes it a little easier to toggle. So I'm going to start animating and posing this out here a bit. And then I'm going to set a key on both feet. Then go to the last frame, which is frame 94 here, and pose that as well, which is surprisingly not that different here. And set a key. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to try to be aware of what's happening with the feet. So I can tell in this last pose that her right foot is actually in the back, off the ground. So I'm going to take the foot roll off of that and the toe lift off of that, and then I'm just going to lift it up and pose it. And that's because I like to pose the toe in the air, or the foot in the air, with just the ankle control, with no toe lift or foot roll, because I get a better result in between if I do that. Okay, so now I have that posed out, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to find the major foot positions. I want to find all the foot positions that happen in between the beginning and the end. And so if I go in here, and tell you what, I'm going to do it in here. So I go in here, and I'm just going to worry about, right now, the left foot. So I'm going to write that down. I'm just going to say left foot. And I know that on frame 1, there's a position through about 12. And there's one that's basically in the same place, frame 19, to about 29 or so. And then there's one that's kind of, it's a step forward. So I'm going to say, just kind of make a notation that it's a step forward, and that starts at frame 36 and goes through 42. And then the next one is another move forward from frame 55 to 62. And then I get to my last one, which starts at frame 87. 87 to the end, to 94. So now I have 4 positions on my right foot. And so I can go in there and just kind of find where those positions are going to be. It looks like they're pretty much, except for that first little step where the left foot comes and kind of replaces the right foot in the same place, I'm going to get pretty much just starting to move basically forward to the end. So I can go in and find a couple of spots on these. So I know 1 through 12, I'm going to have a key on both. So my next logical spot would be to go to frame 12 and set that key. So I'm going to go to frame 12. I'm going to set that key. Now I actually want it to be pretty much the same. I'm going to use the toe lift and whatnot. So I'm going to copy and paste, middle mouse drag. So I click on the frame, I hold my middle mouse down, and then take it over the frame and then hit S, and I have copied that over. So now you can see my feet are pretty much the same. Now looking at my reference, I know that I'm just going to have her up on her toes. So I'm going to use the foot roll for a little bit and then the toe lift for a little bit as well. Now she's sort of going backwards a little bit, and I want her to be straightforward, so this is where I can go in and I can start to make little adjustments to my body. Alright, so that translate Y, I know is going to be a little bit off, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to move this up a bit. So I'm just going to be kind of working on my body a little bit at a time as I animate through. So now I'm not going to worry about the in-between of the feet right now. I'm just going to bring my piece of paper back. And the next foot that seems to plant is 19 to 29. So I'm going to do those 2 poses. I'm going to do on my left foot 19 to 29 and make sure I kind of lock that in. So on frame 19, if I look at the reference, now I can make this pose, which is, I can get that leg and this leg. So I'm going to set a key on both. So you can see it's starting to come together. My next key, which is going to be 29, and you can see 29 kind of lines up here, 29, 29. So I'm going to go through quickly and I'm going to set keys on all of those frames. 29, 35, 42, 47, maybe a 52, 55, and kind of go through and set keys for my feet, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've gone through the first couple of steps, and this is kind of where we're going to go from here. And you can see now it's starting to come together. It's starting to feel like it's a little bit of that dance step. And so now what we can do, and before we get started, I want to make sure if you watch the controls, you want to make sure the foot roll is coming off when the foot is in the air. So meaning the foot roll is zeroing out, and then I'm reposing it with just the rotations. But when it's on the ground, like even here in this big point, I want to make sure that my rotation and my translate Y are 0. My rotate X and my translate Y are 0 so that I can put it all on the foot roll. Now, this just makes it easier to in between as we're going to go through and start doing that now. So now what we're going to do is go through the in-between spots here and find our breakdown poses for the feet. So if we go back to, so we know, okay, so on frame 5 or 6, there's an anticipation. So we can go to that anticipation and grab both controls, set a key. Also want to make sure I go through, and you can see how some aspects don't have a key. I want to make sure everything has a key. So I'm just going to go back, hit every frame and hit S, just in case. Okay, so now I want my feet to actually compress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero out that toe lift because I don't want any toe lift happening. And I'm going to put the feet to go down a little bit on the foot roll. So now you can see as my character compresses, the feet compress too. And now I can go in and just start to find the frames, like frame 9. So what's going on in frame 9? It is starting to push the body up. Okay, so I'm going to go to frame 9. And while I want it to push the body up, looks like it's pushing a little faster than the body. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to hit S to set a key. I'm going to bring that toe lift down first. And using my comma and my period key, I'll start to get a sense of what's going on. And I get a little bit of push off here. And then I can go kind of to frame 15. I'll go look at my reference again. Okay, so on 15, I'm up in the air and starting that move. So that is very different than what I have here. So what I can do is I can go and find one that's pretty close. And I could copy and paste, but you know what? For this, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to pose it because I think that's going to turn out better. And move that leg across. get it lined up pretty close here. So now you can see I'm starting to get that dance. And what happens here is I get this little straight leg that happens on these in-between frames. And that's kind of it's a distracting thing that happens if it pops in and out like that. So what I want to do is I just want to start to create some, I usually go to my toe lift or my foot roll, and I just roll it forward just enough to keep that leg bent. And it fixed it on that frame. So now, so I can start really seeing the dance come together. And so I'll just go take another pass on all these in-between frames. And then I can just keep going forward and making the adjustments. And even if I get a couple of frames closer together to each other, then that's okay as long as it's moving relatively smoothly. So now I'm just continuing to move forward and set these keys. And on some of these frames, you're going to see that the foot is doing something a little bit different than just going up and down. And you might have to use this twist to get that knee to work well. So now as I continue, you probably want to connect that twist there. And I'll keep coming back and checking these sort of in-between frames. All right, so 21, that foot in front is actually coming kind of in front of her. So I'm gonna move that over. Okay, so I'm gonna pause and finish posing this front part out a little bit, and then I'll come back. So that is the beginning of my dance. And I've got a couple of little wiggles and stuff. There's one right there that happens in the leg. And so I can go in and just set a few keys to try and clean that up. But this is pretty good. So it's that same process. And if you only want to do like 30 frames or 40 frames like this of a dance, that's absolutely fine. Because this is a really complex thing to do. I just want to get you familiar with this process and how this would work. Okay, so I've pretty much broken down and finished out my dance animation with the feet. I've gone through that same process of finding the major poses and doing a breakdown in between, continuing to check against my reference until I've finished out the dance, and this is kind of how it looks. So I got most of my feet doing what I want, but there's a couple little spots. You can see one right at the end where the leg kind of flips. And the way I go back and I deal with that is I just have to pretty much go frame by frame and make an adjustment to the twist node. And so I'm going to twist it back and twist it back. And twist that back. And also, you can see I've kind of got it a little bit hyperextended. So I might just nudge it back just a bit. And nudge this one back a bit. And you can see, okay, it'll pick up the foot. It's not moving the leg. an easy kind of way around that is to I hit undo, and that fixed it for the moment. I'll also, if that shows up again, like you see here, it's not affecting it. I'll just grab another control and then go back, and that will tend to pop it back into place. And you can see it's just kind of wiggling around. And very frustrating when it does do that. So now, you can see at the end, I've got a much more stable leg. So it looks like there's another little pop right at the beginning in the other leg, right in here. So I'll go in there, and I'll always kind of use my foot as a good marker of where that knee should point. Kind of, if my knee is pointing pretty close to where my foot is pointing, then I'm in pretty good shape. So pretty good. I've gone through and adjusted most of the major pops. There's still a few in there, but when you get to this point, then go ahead and play blast and save it to your file. You make a video file and turn that into your student folder labeled Week 6, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Okay, so here is the assignment and flipbook, and we've got our poses from where we started off last time, and I'm going to hit that, trim that end here. There we go. All right, so now we're going to go in between, and we've got our sheet of paper still that has our up and down positions, and so now we're going to go in and we're going to try and figure out the in-between positions. So really, I want to do as much on 2s as I can, so I'm just going to start at frame 3, and I'll go to frame 3 and kind of roll back and forth and see what's going on. Okay, so on frame 3, she's just starting to drop down, so now I can do my in-between. Go up, double click on frame 3, set up my in-betweening, and I'm just going to do one on either side. And I know that I want the character to drop down just a little bit, but kind of slow out. So I'm just going to do that. Double click in. I'm not going to want a drawing to hold 3 frames, so I'm going to want to do another in between here. So I'm going to go back and see kind of the same things happening. I might sort of favor, I'm always kind of looking to where I should favor the drawing. So I'm going to favor it on the bottom here. And finish that up. Double click. And so now I'm going to jump up. You see that jump up happening. That's frame 11 where everything's pretty straight. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do this drawing. And this isn't just a straight in between, because you can see that the feet are doing something very different in the reference. They're both jumping off the ground. So now I know that I'm going to do kind of a straight in between of my body going up, but on the feet, what this is called a breakdown. So it's a little bit different. It's kind of an in between, but you've got to keep, there's a little bit different motion happening in the feet. So I'm going to draw my straight legs, and I know I want that straight leg to go up. I also want this one to go up as well. So I can see how that works. It seems like it works okay. And so now I'm going to go back and say, okay, 7, I want to favor that down position, really favor it. And then same thing, I want to really favor the down position to really emphasize that weight. And start that jump up. All right, so now if I play that back, see, I start to get that sense of weight. Okay, and so now I want to look at frame 13. And this is kind of the whole process, is just me kind of filling in the gaps. So frame 13, the foot comes up a little bit, but it doesn't go very high. Now I'm starting to favor the body at the top, but the foot is still dragging behind. So I'm going to put the foot down here. And I can play that. And so you get a sense that the push-off happens and then the foot moves. And so that's the thing that with dance you're always going to be looking at, is that the body you're going to in between pretty typically like a bouncing ball, but the feet are going to have their own little rhythm that's going on. That's a little bit different. Okay, so I'm going to in between a few more of these and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've in between on a little bit, and you start to see it moves really fast through this section. I could sort of keep up with what's going on, but this is where I would probably want to go in then and add some more in-betweens to make it a little more clear and a little smoother motion. And maybe one in between here. And then see what happens. Maybe do one last one here. So now when I play that area, you can see it's a whole lot easier to track what's going on with that foot. And so with some fast motions, you might want to, if it all of a sudden seems like it pops into a new position, you might want to do a few more in-betweens in there. Okay, so I'm going to do a few more here. And in fact, I'll let the camera run. Okay, so 37. I'm going to go over here, look at 37. Okay, so I see the hips starting to reach the top but come down, and 37, the right foot's just starting to move forward. So I want to make note of that. I want to keep those things in mind. So come back, the hips are just starting to come down. The foot is planted on the ground, but the lower foot is just starting to move forward. So each piece has a unique action that's happening. And then go to 41. And 41, that leg is, the hips are starting to move up. The leg is straight though, so I want to keep that leg straight. I'm starting to roll up on that toe. And then look at 43. And the leg's starting to come down. The bottom leg is starting to come up, and the hips are still moving up. All right, so I'll take a look at all of that. Okay, and now I'm going to pause and finish the rest of the animation using that same process where I check the reference and I see what the hips are doing and then what the individual feet are doing, and take note of that as I in between the drawing. And that's the whole process until you finish it out and get it through to the end. Now, if you feel like you are getting a certain area working pretty well and you say, you know what, 30 frames is enough. I just want to get up to this one kick, up to frame 52. That's fine too. You can just do even just a second long little piece of it and say, and call it good. It's more about kind of understanding, tracking the different pieces, and breaking complex motion down into a formula that up and down first that we did last week of the bouncing of the hips, and then bringing the feet alongside with that as well. So, so good luck, and upload this to your week 6 folder, and I will see you next week.